1745, Daniel Delaney, the senior, gave to our congregation a deed to this lot, 211, across the street, at no charge. We began construction of a log cabin church, which is no longer there today, but behind Trinity Chapel that faced West Patrick Street. And that was the beginning of our congregation. Like I said, we were celebrating 275 years here in Frederick. The log cabin church also doubled as the county courthouse in 1748 in the colony of Maryland. We were still under English rule. And before the courthouse could be built, it doubled as the church also doubled as the county courthouse. John Thomas Sly, he was the church leader and schoolmaster, also in this building. Then they outgrew that building and built in 1763 what you see today. The 1763 church was reconstructed and redesigned to what you'll see when we walk inside in 1881. The 1763 church was under pretty disrepair, and so it was decided at that time in 1881 to redesign the church for Sunday school. We still use it for Sunday school today, from preschool to adult education. We do have a worship service in Trinity Chapel at 8:30 with communion and healing service. I would like to point out the town clock. And in 1807, the steeple was redesigned to house the town clock. It was built by Frederick Heisley, and it's a four-sided clock, most unusual. And it was the tallest point in the city at the time. And so no matter where you were in the city, you would always be able to know what time it is. 1931, the Smithsonian came and asked if they could have the original clock. It's housed today in the Museum of American History. Today it's electrified. The original works are there at the Smithsonian. The way it operated was very similar to a tall case clock, or commonly known as a grandfather's clock. A pendulum swung inside the tower. There were giant weights that were wound up, and it was pendulum driven, and it operated, turned all four sides of the clock. Still works very well, all four sides, and so no matter where you are in the city, you always know what time it is. So let's go over and take a look at Trinity Chapel. Here at the entrance of Trinity Chapel is the burial of Reverend Hennep. Pastor Hennep was pastor during the time of the American Revolution. And these, as Thomas Paine said, these are the times that try men's souls. Difficult time for Frederick County folks during the period of the American Revolution. Originally, he was buried underneath the altar. Then when in 1881, when the church was redesigned, he was buried here in the entrance. Very revered and much so. Like I said, we have worship service here at 8:30 in the morning, both with communion and healing service. And the rest of the building is used for Christian education, for our Sunday school for our children, from preschool to adult education. Originally, the church on the inside was very plain and simple. In 1952, there was a renovation of the chapel area and to what you see today. But originally, it was very simple, very plain, no frills. 1763 church. One of the highlights of the tour is the Chimes Room. There's a 10-bell chimes, the music that we play both on Saturday afternoon from 4:30 to 5, and also before church. We are inside the tower, the stone tower. This is the original, what is left of the original 1763 church. Beautiful stonework that you can see up and up and up as it goes. And this is the chimes built by the McShane Manufacturing Company. It's a gift from the Markel family in 1893, and it was installed at that time. 10-bell system. Bells weigh in weight from 2,000 pounds to 200 pounds. This is one of my favorite rooms. This beautiful stained glass window here, Jesus in the temple. If you recall the story from the second book of Luke, Jesus and the family go to Jerusalem for Passover. On their way home, they realize that Jesus isn't with them. Jesus is lost, and they can't seem to find him, so they go back to Jerusalem. They spend 3 days looking for Jesus. They do find him here in the temple, along with the teachers. They're quite amazed at this young man's wisdom and knowledge about life. It's based on Heinrich Hoffmann's original painting, done in 1878. At the top are poets Zwingli and John Calvin, early leaders in the Church Reformation, 16th century, followers of Martin Luther, and of course, the dove for peace. And it's just one of my favorite windows, and I'm glad to show you it at this time. So this is the site of the 1745 church, two-story log cabin building, also with a graveyard. Now the original building faced West Patrick Street. With the cemetery that was here, those that were buried here at that time have been reinterred. Those that were here at one time are listed on this obelisk. It's the site of a spiritual thought and labyrinth of the church, and it's a very quiet and peaceful area. So in 1846, the consistory had made a decision to build a new church. We had outgrown the 1763 church, and at this point, a need for a larger church was required. In 1848, we laid the cornerstone for this building. It was completed in 1850. The architecture, of course, is Greek Revival. Very big in the 1840s. These tall Greek columns with the cornice and such. Originally, the bricks were painted a cream color, and in the 1950s they removed the paint to what you see today. The press releases in 1850, when the church was opened, they called it the Temple because of the Greek Revival, because it looked very much like the Temple in Athens. Up top are the lanterns of the Democracies. They balance the architecture of this Greek Revival church. They were commonly found in Athens, in the ancient city of Athens in Greece. They were collecting areas for folks to come and talk. A large cauldron was placed in the middle at night, which lit up, and people would come during the nice evenings and gather together to just have fun and talk. And they're balanced by these lanterns on both sides, the lanterns of Democracies. So let's go inside. This is known as the narthex of the church. This beautiful mosaic flooring that was put in, very common to the Roman days, 3rd century. Constantine, of course, started Christianity in the country of Italy and the Roman Empire. So you would commonly see this type of flooring in the early Christian days. Here in the narthex also we have some early pictures of the church as it was in 1848. Let's go inside the sanctuary. The main sanctuary for Evangelical Reformed Church, the United Church of Christ. It's set into the auditorium style. If you look at it, it's not like a cathedral style with just a single aisle, but set in 2 aisles in the what we call pulpit center. Originally, there were balconies on these 2 sides. In 1890, they were removed. What is original is this back balcony. Beautiful curvature, a lot of skilled craftsmanship in that. In 1890, the balconies were removed, and of course they were clear windows, both top and bottom, and these beautiful stained glass windows were put in their place. In 1912, we went under a renovation of the altar. The altar was no longer pulpit-centered. The mosaic was added to the backdrop. This is all done in 1912, and again following this early Christian mosaics that were commonly found in Rome. This beautiful mosaic done in 1912. Some prominent people that were here at Evangelical Reformed Church. Barbara Fritchie, of course, well known in Frederick here, was a prominent member. She began her spiritual life across the street in the 1763 church. When this church opened in 1850, she came here to worship. General Stonewall Jackson, during the occupation of the Confederate Army in September 1862, came here on September the 7th. He was looking for, it was a Saturday night, he was looking for a worship service. Avid Presbyterian. Of course, Presbyterian Church didn't have an evening service in his schedule. It worked out that you could come here. And Major Douglas, who rode with, was part of the staff of General Jackson, knew the pastor here at the time, and they were welcomed. He and his staff sat in the last row, and it's known that General Jackson and his group was here on September the 7th, 1862. Later on, the week after the Battle of Antietam. This church was not used as a hospital during the aftermath of the Battle of Antietam. The basement, however, was. And it's known as a story that we both serviced both Confederate and Union soldiers, the wounded, in the basement of the church. And there was a large canvas screening that went across to keep each other from seeing each other. They'd yell and scream at each other and that kind of thing, but as wounded, the ladies of this church took good care of them here in the basement. The Protestant churches wanted a place of worship on Sundays, so they all took turns in this building. The Methodists came on 1 hour, ourselves another hour, Presbyterians another hour, because all of the city of Frederick was one vast hospital. 7,000 wounded came in a matter of days, and it was the response of the people of Frederick that helped many of the wounded here as a result of the Battle of Antietam. One vast hospital. So in 2017, we began a project of a renovation and a whole new addition here to Evangelical Reform. This is the new addition. We'll take you inside. New facilities today, new large community room. Again, we outgrew our community room, and as such, in plans in 2016 was to expand the area. And let's take you inside and I'll show you. This, of course, takes us over to the main sanctuary. We have a brand new elevator system. It makes it fully handicap accessible to all points, including the office, including the second floor of the office. And this is our new community room. And we have a full approved kitchen here. We'd like to thank you for coming to Trinity Chapel and our main sanctuary across the street, helping us to celebrate 275 years here in the town of Frederick.